Hello, I'm Justin. This is Talk Junkie, and this is the mailbag. Probably one of my favorite episodes to do. I truly love it. And in the middle of doing mailbag, this mailbag, we switched our email address from the former authorjperk at gmail.com to talkjunkie at gmail.com. And young Mikey, you're very, very concerned to know if you indeed were the first email to talkjunkie at gmail.com. Yes, you were, and thank you for listening. Thank you for being the first email. Thank you for the video you shared with me. I really liked it. Kind of got me turned on to that guy on YouTube. I don't know, because I'm on YouTube as well as some of these, what you are allowed to do, because YouTube's kind of iffy with their stuff. But I did share that video with some friends. Very good video. Very much liked it. Very much appreciated it. And you predicted it. You called it. Dead on the money. It either means one of two things. You were the first person to hear it on one of the shows, or no one else gave a crap for a little bit of time, and just, you know, you heard it way later and just nobody else wanted a message. Don't know, but you definitely are you were the first message that I received that was not a, you know, generated from Google or whatever. You created an account deal. And to the two questions you tacked on at the end, yes, I do get credit for views on Spreaker. So if you're watching through Spreaker, that's cool. I do get credit through that. Kind of curious to where everybody listens from. So when you start sending in your name and information for the mailing address to talkjunkie at gmail.com, tell me what platform you use, because we're going to be doing 1,000 download episode for iTunes, it looks like. So do that. We got a 100th episode coming up, but I'd kind of like to know where everybody is. So yes, I do. I do get credit. And for your last question, Eastern Kentucky, I guess it's okay to be specific. I don't know why it would hurt to tell you this. I'll just keep the question between me and you. I'll give you county, not County, Kentucky. So I'll give you that. Now, Amanda, you sent me an email, and I was confused. Very confused at first because of your name. And you gave me the name, and you said, my name's Amanda, and you asked a question about sponsorship, and I thought it was a friend playing a joke. And when she hears this, I think she'll understand why, because she'll associate the names. But Amanda asked, how much do you make for your promotional ads for the various people that you run ads for, i.e., and that's actually what she put in the email, i.e., let me find it, i.e., Red Spotted Newt, Chain BJJ, it's Chain Reaction BJJ. Very important, got to get that down. And the music store. The music store is Roundabout Music. I don't make anything. Actually, there's no ad revenue for that. There's some ads at the beginning of these podcasts from time to time. That's set up through Spreaker. All that good jive, but no. Those are just places that I believe in, and I feel deeply about, so that's why I do that. As I read on in the email, I realized, why you ask such a thing? You have a podcast, or are starting a podcast. Let me look. You're starting a podcast. You're starting a podcast, and you want to know how the ads work. I never thought about doing the ads like locally, having companies pay me. I'm not saying it's a bad idea. It actually is a pretty good idea. But I would have to get a lot of local listeners, and I feel like I'd need to have a way to show them that my listeners were local, which currently I don't know how to do that. So because that would be me dealing. I live in a very small town. I don't know the area in which you're in, but for me to do that, that would be the problem. I'd have to be able to prove that my listeners were local, and in order to generate that from a small. But the Spreaker setup is pretty good. If you monetize your episodes, I don't even think most of mine are set up, or all of mine have been set up to monetize yet. That's something I need to get on top of. But I have been kind of messing around with the Anchor app for other podcast stuff, and it seems to have a really good setup for ad revenue and things of that nature. And so I would definitely look at where I do my podcast at. As far as just ease and setup and all those things, I love Spreaker. I don't like that when it's me on the road with just my phone. Like, I need a laptop really to get good sound quality and use Skype in order to have another person on. With Anchor, there's other ways around that, so I like that. So there's a lot of different options out there. I definitely look into those, but no, I don't charge those people. And I got that question by a very close friend very early on when we would mention Hot Rods a lot, a local pizza establishment. But I was mentioning it because they were allowing us to do some cool things and working with us, and they work with a lot of local artists. I done a book signing there once. They had a lot of local musicians come through. I know another gentleman who had a book signing there. So, it's cool that that I'm able to mention those people, and but no, I don't charge them. So if that answers your question, and I no longer have you confused with another person after reading the rest of your email. Miss C, and I think I know who Miss C is, at least I think I do. When's the new book coming out? Look, it's done. It could be out today, but I want to do this in person. As far as being able to talk to people, get a hold of people, things of that nature, and being able to do readings and signings and all that good jive. So it's just a waiting game to win this whole mess that's going on right now with the quarantine is over. By numbers that are coming out now daily and things that are changing daily, I cannot imagine that this quarantine lasts much longer. It could, but I just can't see that being feasible. So hopefully soon. That's really all I can say. And when it is, trust me, it'll be all over this podcast when it comes out. Young Richard, I did get your email. We know that Talk Junkie's a little bit more family friendly, just a little bit more. So, no, I won't answer that question on here about tongues and any presidential candidate or anything like that. I believe you're a good little sheep. You're one of a few sheep I like. Stay the path. I'm sure no one's misleading you. I'm sure your side actually is better than the other side, and that there's no chance that I'm right and both sides are equally bad. So, that's the best I can do with that one. I can't even read it on the air. It is what it is. Brando, thank you very, very much. All your comments, your motivation, the kind words you have to say, comments on everything from YouTube to email and messenger and text and things. Truly, it is appreciated, and I enjoy being able to run things by you. I like your input on the show. You're very active with the episodes, and that makes it really fun for me and really cool for me because you're constantly giving input, and I like that a lot. It's one of the things that makes this fun, especially with somebody that I know, because I know you'll give me an honest input on how you feel about episodes and things like that. So I truly appreciate that, and I appreciate you putting it putting those comments out there and reaching out to me personally and stuff. Again, because this is the best time to mention it during the mailbag episodes, the email address for the show is talkjunkie@gmail.com. And one of the emails we got is from Mr. Cox, C-O-X, I think that's Cox. Boland. Boland is currently on he's currently on the Oregon Trail, and they listen to our podcast every day on the Oregon Trail. It helps get them through and things of that nature. And Boland wants to ask a very deep question about what happens after this life. Not just to people, but to inanimate objects, lost body parts. I assume something like my thumb, or I don't have my thumb, like if I go to heaven, will my thumb be in heaven with me? But he was more specific to a practice, a religious practice that has been done throughout the world for years and years and years, of removing a certain portion of skin from males. And if that, I think he also threw in there aborted babies, if those things all went to heaven. If heaven were real, and I have a feeling this would truly offend him, but if heaven were real, yes, aborted babies would definitely go to heaven, because that would be life, and science has proven that they're life. Although I don't particularly, I look at it like this. Let's even make it easy. Let's not make it a question of is heaven real or not? Is there an afterlife or not? Leave that to your own personal beliefs. If you believe that, then that there is, awesome. But let's look at life. If we live life as though that moment in time, that day, that instance, life as it is in the present is our concern, then I don't see where it's relevant to if anything comes after that. To me, you live life for the sake of living life, for the sake of being alive, and be a good person for the sake of being a good person in this life in which you're alive in. If all I'm doing is living for something promised of tomorrow, probably means I'm doing a pretty job at living today. So, yeah, I'm not big on people living for these promised afterlives. Live for now, live for today, and live for those things. I don't expect to ever see my thumb again, so I would assume I'll never see my again. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what I was allowed in the various different afterlives. I think he spoke specifically of heaven. I'm assuming that's heaven in regards to Christianity. I don't know what I was... you made a good point, dogs and trees and things of that nature being allowed up there. But you said that because you think of them as being organic, and I would point you back to a couple of our kind of far out there crazy podcasts about simulations and life in general. Maybe as close as you're going to get to an afterlife, in particular, Mr. Boland, especially considering you're on the Oregon Trail, may be an altered virtual reality state, because maybe everything that you're seeing as being organic, your oxen, yourselves, your fellow travelers, your dogs, chickens, sheep, pigs, things of those nature, are actually just mechanical, or if nothing else, just program written into a mechanically simulated cycle. I don't know. But I think a lot of times when it comes to things like the afterlife and things like heaven and things of that nature, people worry too much about what they got to do at the last minute to get in there. I think life as a whole should have a little more value than that. And to me, if you're just living as a good person, anybody that doesn't want you after that point, well, I mean, you may be better off alone. I don't really know any other way to kind of address that. I hope that kind of got you where you wanted to go with that. Actually, I know it didn't get you exactly where you wanted to go with it, but I hope it is satisfying to you to some degree. I think the best way to put it would be, Pericles said, "What you leave behind is not what is engraved in stone monuments, but what is woven into the lives of others." And then Socrates went on to say, "We cannot live better than in seeking to become better." And Aristotle went on to say, "The ideal man bears the accidents of life with dignity and grace, making the best of circumstances." So, live life as if it's a totality of numerous days put together and have an interwoven message amongst it, but don't live it in order to get somewhere else, because then you've kind of wasted the trip just at the sake of the destination. That's best I can get you on that. Oh, the biggest thing, Bobby Ray Stevens is on the Oregon Trail with you. Little Bobby Ray was born with an issue, and Bobby Ray's in our thoughts, and I want to give Bobby Ray a shout out, and I want Bobby Ray to know that here at Talk Junkie, we don't want to make light of his condition, and we truly we truly are thinking of him, and we thank him for listening. We thank Bolin as well as Bobby Ray for listening. Tain't gonna get no easier, Bobby Ray. It tain't. Now, in regards to Alien X, I'm going to stick with Alien X. I'm not going to say your real name. People understand. Same for young Richard. When you email, if you use an email that's got your name in it, I'm going to know your name. So you can put down that my name is Alien X, but I'm going to know your name. So Alien X, yes, I did say that I don't believe that aliens are visiting us here. I do believe that there's intelligent life out there. I do believe that life is probably fairly abundant based on calculations of size of the known universe and the unknown. But no, I do not believe they've made it here. I'm not a shill for the CIA and their anti-blah, blah, blah, whatever you came up with. How do I feel about... You asked me how I feel about documentation, and I would have assumed we're talking about the two really well-known pieces that the government released. Now my understanding is there's a third piece, and I've looked at it. Three things right off. I don't know what I'm looking at because I'm not an aeronautics expert. I don't know anything about flight and propelled aircraft, and even in regards to propulsion, I don't really know anything about that. I also don't know anything about what ability they have to manipulate the footage and to do with it what they want. Now, secondly, I would say that to me, just looking at it, it's not highly impressive. But the whole first thing is a prerequisite to that. I'm undereducated in regards to what I'm looking at. Looking at it thirdly, the United States government doesn't tell you anything that they don't want you to know for a reason. Somebody in the email asked me if I'm a conspiracy theorist. I guess to that degree I am. They don't tell you anything they don't want you to know for a reason. So that's what I feel about those things. There's things, abduction stories and things of that nature that, they're really hard to ignore. They're really hard to look at and just go, oh man, those are just all made up. Various different ones. There's three to me that have some validity. You asked me to watch the documentary Walking with the Tall Whites. I did. I'll give you three things about that documentary. The gentleman featured in the documentary, extremely nice, extremely interesting, extremely enjoyable to listen to, and fairly well spoken, and a delightful human all the way around. I appreciate his service in the military and what he's done for his country. Great person. Seems like a great, wonderful person. I'll say it's the most ridiculous of all of the alien stories I've heard, bar none, really. I mean, it's up there at least with even Bigfoot's an alien. Like it's up there with those for me. Thirdly, very well made documentary. I do feel like it's the worst story out there, though. I do. You listed some other documentaries. Not gonna lie, didn't watch all of them. The one that was kind of like, I guess the documentary version, the real life version of the abduction. I don't have the name written down in front of me. I can't remember off the top of my head now, but you'll know which one I'm talking about. The guy that made Fire in the Sky about, I believe. It's a very good documentary. I believe that guy believes he's telling the truth. I believe those gentlemen believe they're telling the truth. Can't explain what happened there. I'm not going to pretend to. I'm not going to call him a liar. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert. They passed the polygraphs. I understand that. You're going to, if I can get this other podcast off the ground, you're going to love the other podcast. So Alien X, please keep listening. I am going to hopefully get this going and get this on it. And that goes to your next question about the MK Ultra. I do believe I'll still touch on it here in an episode. I've worked pretty hard on this episode. I believe I'll still touch on it here, but that other podcast will allow for a deep dive into some of that. And yes, I have watched Wormwood, and yes, I will touch on it in those, definitely in those episodes. Joshua, email at Author J Perk. You send it to Author J Perk. It's before the change, I understand. Your email simply said, "Hey, can I be on the Mailbag Show?" Well, big guy, let me tell you, you're on the Mailbag Show. So Joshua, there you go. You're on the Mailbag Show. When you send email, put in there what I can call you, what I can't call you, what you won't put out if you want a name out there. Because I notice a lot of people, again, sending from JoeBlow at gmail.com, and then instead of Joe Buggle, my name's Dairon the Great and Magnificent. You know, I mean, I don't know really where to go with that. So I'm trying to be respectful, and yeah. Now, a ton of emails were just book oriented. So, and none of them were extremely personal or anything of that nature. So I'm not shafting anybody by not mentioning a name or anything. Yes, the book is done. No, there's not a release date for the book. Obviously, I covered that with somebody else earlier. But it is a poetry book. Somebody had even, and I should have wrote that down, somebody did even mention something about a novel. No. No novels at this point. There's a book of short stories that have been kicked around and this and that. I hope to finish them at some point. Some of those were supposed to go in this poetry book, and I held them back. I kind of kept them. They're not completely done yet. I want them perfect, and I kind of want enough to do a standalone book of short stories. So, you know, it would have put me behind on this book, and I wanted this book done. I wanted it done for National Poetry Month and missed that, which, you know, wouldn't have mattered. I wouldn't have released it anyway due to the situation. Good sir, on this next one, proves a couple of things. One, I evidently have a lot more men listeners than female. We need to change that. Ladies, if you are a lady that listens to this, you need to get other ladies to listen to this, or at least reach out, because they're not reaching out as much. But the next gentleman, based on your email address, but then what you put, you put, "Hello, my name is Turd, T-U-R-D, Turd, but your name is actually Todd. I know a Todd that I used to call Turd. I don't know if this is Turd. If it is, hello, Turd. If it was simply a misspelling, I'm sorry, Todd. It does happen, from time to time. You said, give me 5 podcasts that you listened to that made you want to do podcasts. I don't know if they made me want to do podcasts, but 5 podcasts that I listen to that I really enjoy. Joe Rogan Experience, Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard, Penn Sunday School, Tell 'em Steve Dave, and then on that 5th one, bounce around from a lot of different ones. If I had to just narrow it down, I'm going to do this. I'm going to give you 2. 2 that I enjoy is Raven Television Addict and Randomness Captured Alive. I'll give you those 2. Those are lower, those are more on my level, maybe a little bit bigger than me. But not at the level, So that way you kind of got Radio Lab does a good one. Dan Carlin's Hardcore History is one of my favorites, bar none. But I've stopped suggesting it for people because I'll suggest it for someone, they'll come back and go, I went to listen to episode whatever, and it's 6 hours long. And I'm like, yeah, it is. And it's a 2-parter, and the other one's 4. There's a paywall with Dan Carlin too. Like you can download some of his free, but some of his you have to pay for. He's got another podcast. They're worth it. He puts a lot of research and a lot of time into those history podcasts. I really, really like those podcasts though. National Geographic does decent. They've got a little short one that pops up here and there. I like it. Again, I'm not going to mention your name because you addressed yourself as somebody else, but get that paper. I do actually somewhat know what that means, and I'm kind of impressed with that. But get that paper says, what do you recommend what do you recommend in regards to who to use for your podcast, basically. It's a very long email, but that's the gist of the email. I've mentioned this a couple times. I didn't probably do the research I should have done when starting this. Started out with Spreaker. I've kind of stuck with Spreaker, and I like so many parts of the setup with Spreaker. What I don't like about Spreaker is it's hard to bring people in the way that you can do it. Basically, with Anchor, you can just make basically like, let's say, a Facebook call. I can send out through Messenger, through Facebook, and be like, hey, invite these people on. If they reply, it calls in, it automatically puts them on for me. And the editing tools, I've not tried with Anchor, but I've noticed that there's a possibility to record this in individual segments and put it together. It's a little harder to do on the mobile app actually, I've never even attempted that with the mobile app on Spreaker. Don't even know if it is possible. I do, however, like my sound effects on Spreaker. It allows for me to do various different things, including adding a little music at the touch of a finger. And I mean, that kind of rules. So, I like that part. Spreaker's pretty idiot-proof. Anchor doesn't seem to be as intuitive to me. Like, Anchor kind of drags its feet with certain things. There's things about Anchor I'm not crazy about. But Spreaker seems to be pretty intuitive and easy to use. I know there's others out there. My suggestion would be watch tons of YouTube videos and research it. It's not what I did. Anchor's completely free. I pay for Spreaker, and you get time and storage and all that based on how much you pay per month. Considering I'm not making money, it's not really intelligent that I'm paying for Spreaker, but hey, you win some, you lose some. It's just what I do. And this came in the form of a comment. The Good Sheep. I like that. Truly like your name. You like to end the show with quotes. And I often hear you say that you don't like to get political, but then again, I often hear you get somewhat political. It's hard for me often to tie down where you are politically and what you truly believe politically. I like your quotes, and I like the fact that you seem to be pretty ambiguous in your beliefs. But give me a quote that will express to me your true beliefs on how you feel politically. Went through a lot of quotes. One jumped out at me off the top of my head at first. And I thought, no, that's too vague. The good sheep deserves a little more than that. And I looked and looked, and I just kept coming back to one quote. So I'm going to read you this. It's from Plato. Those who are able to see beyond the shadows and lies of their culture will never be understood, let alone believed by the masses. I think people who don't have a political agenda and aren't tied down politically get put in a box and considered to be far right by the far left and far left by the far right. So I don't have a political affiliation. Politics do filter in from time to time. I just ask that people not be sheep, so to speak. Then you said, and in regards to your quotes, I hear quotes sometimes that are from you and sometimes that are from others. How do you come up with your quotes? Are your quotes taken from anywhere? And what is a quote you like but you would have changed in some way? I get the quotes from stuff I read. The quotes that as far as the quotes I recite to you, and I try to always give the person, if it's one I've got memorized, sometimes I can't remember, but 99% of the time I'm going to give you the person, because I write them down in a quote book, and I go by that. There are somewhat like quotes in my writings, like I'll do writings and stuff, but they never make it into the poetry books or anything like that. They're just kind of little things I'd say. But there is a quote I heard, the Stoic Emperor on Twitter. I don't have him on Twitter. I find his quotes other places, videos. He said, "Cowards are bold in a crowd. Weak men become murderers in a mob." I believe that's very, very indicative of where we are with far leftist and far right people in this country. Very ignorant, short-minded, and very cowardly people who, once they're with their group, have a little more to say. And I would say, if I was changing that quote, cowards are brave in post. Weak men become vicious in comments. And that would be kind of Justin Perkins' version of that quote. Wow. I'm trying to keep these kind of short, and I do try to save some stuff. If I didn't get to something, it doesn't mean like I don't appreciate you sending the email, because there are things I didn't get to. There were things I lumped in together. Send one. We're going to do another one. Just keep sending them out. Keep interacting. A lot of the people I did choose are people that do interact a lot. People that I see a lot from. But send those in with a good question. We are going to do kind of like a retrospective for our 100th episode. That's why I went ahead and did this now, because I'd thought about different things. I thought about using this for the 100th. I went back and forth. But we're going to do a retrospective of what we've kind of talked about for the 100th. I hope I got to your questions. I hope you enjoyed them. I hope you liked it. I hope it was a fun episode. Again, send these messages, send all this stuff to talkjunkie@gmail.com. Don't suck, don't die, be good to people.